My name is Margaret Hollis. My daughter broke my heart in a way I didn't think was possible. Trust me, you'll regret skipping this story. So before you sit back and listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Grace's Truth. Now get in the mood to listen to this story because it might be the ultimate sweet revenge. It started small, the kind of thing you almost brush off without thinking. A casual post here, a vague caption there. My daughter Erin had always been active on social media, but lately her tone had changed. There were pictures of her looking pale, curled up on the couch, a cup of tea on the table beside her. The captions were cryptic. Some days are harder than others, or trying to stay strong. At first I didn't overthink it. Maybe she'd caught a seasonal bug. She lived in the same town as me, but we didn't see each other every day. She'd been busy, always working late or catching up with friends, and I'd learned not to press too much. Still, the posts kept coming. The photos became more dramatic. Dim lighting, tired eyes, a blanket draped over her shoulders. I sent her a message one evening. "Are you okay? You've been posting things that worry me." Her reply came quickly but short. "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired. Don't worry." But I did worry. Erin wasn't the type to fish for sympathy online. She was proud, even a little stubborn, and if something was bothering her, she usually bottled it up until she exploded. This new public vulnerability felt strange. A week later, I ran into my friend Nancy at the grocery store. She leaned in, her voice low, eyes wide with concern. "I saw Erin's post," she said. "I'm so sorry, Maggie. This must be so hard on you." I froze mid-aisle, a jar of pasta sauce in my hand. "What do you mean?" Nancy's face shifted surprise, then hesitation. You don't know." I shook my head slowly. My heart began to thud. "Know what she said? She's sick. Cancer. Stage. Something." The pasta sauce nearly slipped from my fingers. I felt heat rise to my face. "No," I said firmly. "That can't be right. She hasn't said anything to me." Nancy's eyes darted away, uncomfortable. "Maybe she didn't want to upset you. But she made a post. It's all over Facebook." When I got home, I opened my laptop and searched her page. There, it was a long post written in a shaky, heartfelt tone about how she'd been diagnosed with advanced cancer and was bracing for the fight of her life. She'd thanked everyone for their prayers, said she would be transparent about her journey, and signed off with "Every moment is precious now." I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. She had never said a word to me, not a single hint of a diagnosis. I called her. She answered on the third ring. "Mom, can I call you later? I'm with someone." "Erin," I said sharply, "what is this post on Facebook? Cancer? You didn't tell me anything." There was a pause. Then she sighed as though I were the one making this difficult. "I didn't want to scare you until I knew more. You knew more enough to tell hundreds of people online before your own mother." My voice cracked from shock, from hurt. "I didn't know." She muttered something about me overreacting and hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her post, the comments pouring in. "Stay strong. You've got this. We're praying for you." I felt a knot in my stomach, but I told myself maybe she just needed space. Maybe she was processing it her way. But deep down, something didn't feel right. The next day, I stopped by her apartment unannounced. She opened the door in leggings and a sweatshirt, hair pulled back, a smoothie in her hand. She looked fine, healthy. Her color was good, her eyes bright. "Mom, I wish you'd called first," she said, stepping aside to let me in. I asked her about her diagnosis. What kind of cancer? Which doctor? What treatment plan? Her answers were vague, almost rehearsed, like a script she'd memorized but hadn't studied well enough. When I pressed for the name of her oncologist, she deflected, saying she didn't want to get into details yet. I left feeling more unsettled than before. That evening, another post went up, a picture of her hand holding a hospital wristband. The caption read, "Step 1 of a long journey." But the background of the photo didn't look like our local hospital. It looked staged. I didn't comment. I didn't call. I just watched and waited. It was the first step into a nightmare I never imagined I'd be living. 2 days later, I woke to my phone buzzing non-stop. Notifications, missed calls, and messages were flooding in from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old neighbors, former colleagues, even distant relatives, all reaching out with condolences and offers to help. Confused, I scrolled through the barrage of texts until I saw the source Erin's latest post. It was a full public announcement. I wasn't ready to tell the world, but the truth is, I have stage 3 lymphoma. It's aggressive, but I'm a fighter. The road ahead will be long and expensive, but I'm grateful for every bit of love and support you send my way. Below the text were carefully curated photos Erin sitting on a hospital bed in a pale blue gown, a saline drip beside her. A white headscarf tied neatly around her head. Her face angled down just enough to look weary, yet beautiful. My heart pounded. I stared at that picture for a long moment, bile rising in my throat. Just 2 days ago, I'd seen her healthy hair intact smoothie in hand. Now she was bald. I knew hair loss didn't happen overnight. Something was wrong here. Underneath the post, thousands of likes and comments streamed in. "You've got this, Erin. Sending prayers from across the country. Don't you worry about a thing, we're all here for you." And then I saw a link pinned at the top of her profile. "Help Erin Fight Cancer GoFundMe." The fundraiser page had its own dramatic appeal. "I'm Erin Hollis. I'm 28 years old and recently diagnosed with stage 3 lymphoma. The medical costs are overwhelming and I need your help. Anything you can give will go toward my treatment medications and transportation to appointments. I believe in miracles and you can be mine." The donation counter already sat at $5,400, less than 24 hours after launching. I felt dizzy. My fingers trembled as I clicked through the list of donors. Some were old high school friends of hers, some were strangers, but a good number were people I knew personally. My neighbor from 2 streets over. My cousin in Ohio. People I hadn't spoken to in decades reaching into their pockets because they believed Erin's story. My first instinct was to call her, demand an explanation, but a little voice inside told me to wait. Instead, I scrolled further down the fundraiser page and saw a series of updates, photos of her, with a blanket around her shoulders sipping soup, or lying on a couch recovering from treatments. In each one, she looked slightly more frail, a touch paler. But something about them felt off. It was the little details, her nails freshly manicured in one picture when she'd supposedly just been through chemo. The hospital room in one shot, which I recognized from a stock photo website I'd once used for teaching materials. Still, the thought of accusing my own daughter of faking cancer felt unthinkable. Even considering it made me feel like a terrible mother. What if I was wrong? What if she truly was sick and I was letting my suspicion cloud my compassion? But then that evening, I saw something that shook me to my core. I stopped by the local bakery to pick up a pie for the weekend, and as I waited at the counter, I heard a familiar laugh behind me. I turned, and there she was, Erin, wearing the same headscarf from her photos, but underneath, I could see strands of her natural hair poking out. She was chatting animatedly with a friend holding a bag of pastries, looking perfectly healthy. When she spotted me, her face tightened. "Mom, hey. Didn't expect to see you here." I glanced at the pastries in her hand. "Thought you were on a strict diet for your treatments." She gave a small, awkward laugh. "It's fine. I'm allowed treats sometimes." Her friend shifted uncomfortably and mumbled something about being late before leaving. Erin stood there fidgeting with her scarf. "Erin," I said quietly, "what's going on? You've got the whole town believing you're dying. Are you?" Her eyes hardened just for a second. "You think I'd make something like this up?" she snapped. "God, Mom, you're unbelievable." And with that, she brushed past me and walked out. I stood frozen in the bakery, a deep unease settling over me. I knew I wasn't imagining things anymore. Something was very wrong. What I didn't know yet was just how far she'd take it. By the next morning, the fundraiser had exploded. Erin's GoFundMe sat at over $12,000. The comments were overflowing with emotional declarations from people offering to pray her through this battle, strangers saying she reminded them of a niece or sister they'd lost. Some even promised recurring monthly donations until she was back on her feet. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee growing cold, staring at the page. The more I scrolled, the more suffocated I felt. These people were giving their hard-earned money because they believed she was dying. I kept telling myself there had to be a rational explanation. Maybe her doctor had told her the prognosis was so bad that she felt rushed into action. Maybe the treatments were unconventional, hence my confusion. But every possible excuse I conjured fell apart when I thought about her energy, her appearance, the way she breezed through that bakery door, laughing, scarf slightly askew to reveal perfectly healthy hair. That afternoon, I received a call from my cousin Lillian. "Maggie, I just donated $500 to Erin's fund," she said proudly. "I wish I could do more, but I figured it'd help with her next round of chemo." My stomach twisted. "Lillian, I appreciate your generosity, but I stopped myself. What was I supposed to say? That I wasn't sure my own daughter was telling the truth? That I suspected she might be defrauding her own family? Instead, I forced a thank you and hung up my guilt, pressing heavy on my chest. The next day, Erin posted another update, a photo of her in bed, a knit cap pulled low with the caption, "Another round down. Nausea's rough, but your support keeps me going." I stared at the image. The lighting was strange too, even too polished for a sick room photo. And the bedspread? I recognized it. It wasn't from a hospital at all. It was the guest bed in my late mother's house. Erin must have taken the photo there and staged the scene. That night, unable to sleep, I sat down with my laptop and began really digging. I read every single comment on her fundraiser. I took screenshots of posts and photos, carefully noting dates and times. I started matching them to her supposed treatment days, and patterns emerged. Days she claimed to be in the hospital, she'd been tagged at restaurants, coffee shops, even a concert. The deeper I looked, the sicker I felt. I remembered the hospital wristband photo from earlier. Something about it had nagged at me, so I zoomed in. The name on the band wasn't hers. It was blurry, but definitely not Erin Hollis. It looked like a prop someone else had tossed her way. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing my temples. The truth was forming clear and ugly. Erin wasn't sick. She was lying to the entire world for money. The next morning, I decided to confront her again, but gently. Maybe, just maybe, there was something I didn't understand, a truth behind her lies. I called and asked if I could bring her lunch. She hesitated but agreed. When I arrived, her apartment smelled faintly of perfume and takeout food. She opened the door looking perfectly radiant, makeup flawless, skin glowing. No sign of the physical exhaustion she'd described online. I handed her the food and sat at her tiny kitchen table. "Erin," I began carefully, "I want to talk about your treatment." "You know you can tell me anything, right?" She didn't meet my eyes, fiddling with the edge of a napkin. "I've already told you everything you need to know." "I've been reading your fundraiser," I said softly. "It's doing really well. Over $12,000 now." That made her glance up just for a split second, her lips twitching into the faintest smile before she masked it. "Yeah, people have been generous, and you're using it for the hospital bills," I pressed. "Of course I am." She shot back a little too quickly. I took a deep breath. "Erin, I know you're not telling me the whole truth. The photos, the dates, they don't match. The hospital wristband isn't even yours." Her eyes snapped to mine, wide and cold. "Are you accusing me of something? I'm asking you to be honest with me," I said. My voice was steady, but my hands were trembling beneath the table. "Because if this isn't true, you're taking money from people who care about you, people who believe you're dying." She stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. You always think the worst of me. You've never trusted me, not once in my life. That's not true, I said, standing too. I'm your mother. I want to believe you. But I also want to protect you. And right now you're walking into something that could ruin your life. Her jaw tightened. You don't get it. You never have. Now get out. I left without another word, my heart heavy. The air outside felt colder than when I'd gone in. For the next few days, Erin kept posting more photos, more heartfelt captions, more pleas for help. The donations soared past $20,000. She shared tearful videos about the battle and the fight, and the gratitude she felt for every dollar. Meanwhile, I started hearing murmurs from around town. A neighbor mentioned seeing her jogging in the park. Someone else spotted her at a wine tasting. Each time I heard these stories, I wrote them down, collecting a quiet catalog of contradictions. The tipping point came when I received an email from one of my former students, now a nurse. She'd seen Erin's posts and wanted to offer help, but when she checked the patient records at our local hospital, Erin's name wasn't there. Not once. That night, I sat alone in my living room, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. My phone screen glowed with Erin's latest post, a smiling selfie with the caption, "Fighting like a warrior. Thank you for keeping me strong. No." I realized then that this wasn't just a misguided decision or a white lie gone too far. This was deliberate, calculated. And unless someone stopped her, she'd keep spinning this story until she'd bled her supporters dry. And I knew with a sinking feeling that person would have to be me. Once the decision settled in my mind that I had to stop Erin, the question became how. She was my daughter. No matter how furious or betrayed I felt, the thought of destroying her public image, her friendships, and possibly her future made my stomach knot. But every day that passed meant more money collected under false pretenses, more people unwittingly complicit in her scam. If I confronted her again, she'd just deflect, twist my words, or lash out. I needed something undeniable, a trail of evidence that couldn't be explained away with a tearful story or a manipulative guilt trip. I began in the most basic way, with a notebook. Each day, I logged the date and any observation I could verify. The day she claimed she was hooked up to IV chemo all afternoon, I wrote down that she'd been spotted at the mall buying a new handbag. The morning she posted about feeling weak and bedridden, a neighbor saw her jogging in the park. I kept screenshots of every social media post, noting timestamps and cross-referencing them with witness accounts. But digital evidence was just part of the puzzle. I needed more. One Thursday, I parked my car a few streets from her apartment and waited. She was supposedly scheduled for a major infusion that day, according to her latest post. Around 10 a.m., she emerged, no hospital bag, no ride service, just a latte in one hand and her phone in the other. She strolled down the sidewalk in yoga pants, hair tucked neatly under a cap. I followed at a safe distance, heart pounding, as she walked straight into a local boutique and began trying on dresses. I snapped photos from across the street. Each click of the camera felt like a betrayal of my own flesh and blood, but I reminded myself she had already crossed that line. The more I watched, the more the pattern became obvious. There were no hospital visits, no medical staff, no signs of treatment side effects except in the carefully staged photographs she posted online. I began pulling her public photos into a folder on my computer. Using reverse image search, I discovered something that made my skin crawl. One of her hospital bed shots was cropped from a stock image available on multiple websites. She'd edited it just enough to look like herself, adding her own wrist and hand into the frame, posing in similar lighting. That was the moment the last shred of doubt left me. This wasn't desperation, it was calculated fraud. But still, I wasn't ready to take my findings public. Not yet. Part of me clung to the hope that I could talk her down quietly, convince her to end the lie before it got worse. I tried again the following weekend. I invited her over for dinner, making her favorite chicken pot pie, hoping the comfort of home might soften her. She arrived in the same knit cap she wore in all her treatment photos, though a lock of her natural hair slipped free when she bent to hug me. We ate in near silence, her scrolling on her phone between bites. Finally, I set my fork down. "Erin," I said, "we need to talk about this cancer story." Her head snapped up. "It's not a story, Mom. It's my life." "It's a lie," I said evenly. "I've seen the photos you're using. I've been tracking your whereabouts. You haven't been to a single treatment. And I know you haven't been to the hospital at all." Her eyes flashed with something between rage and fear. "You've been spying on me. I've been protecting you from yourself," I countered. "You're walking into a criminal case, Erin. This isn't just about me being disappointed you could go to jail." For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of panic, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, a smirk tugging at her lips. "Nobody's going to find out, Mom. People love me. They're not going to dig into it. And you wouldn't dare turn on your own daughter." Her words landed like a punch. In that moment, I realized she believed she was untouchable, and that belief made her dangerous. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I simply nodded and cleared the table. That night after she left, I sat down at my computer and organized every piece of evidence into a single folder. Photos, timestamps, screenshots, witness accounts, everything neatly labeled. My hands shook as I realized I was building a case against my own child. The days that followed were tense. Erin's fundraiser climbed past $30,000, and she began posting updates about upcoming experimental treatments in another state. The comments section turned into a river of sympathy and financial pledges. The whispers in town grew louder. At the grocery store, two women glanced at me and then away quickly, their hushed voices following me down the aisle. At church, someone squeezed my hand and murmured, "You must be so proud of how brave she's being." It was a strange kind of hell being the mother of the bravest girl in town, knowing full well she was lying to every last one of them. One evening, while scrolling through her latest post, I saw something new. She was planning a public benefit night at a local cafe, complete with a silent auction and live music, with all proceeds going toward her treatment. That was my breaking point. If she crossed into hosting events, it wouldn't just be online donations from faceless strangers. It would be our neighbors, friends, and community members handing her cash in person. And I knew once that happened, there'd be no turning back. I told myself I had one last chance to stop her quietly. If she refused, I'd have no choice but to let the truth come out. And I was about to find out just how far she was willing to go to protect her lie. I didn't sleep the night she announced the benefit. The image of her standing on that cafe's small stage, basking in applause while pocketing money, meant for a life or death battle she wasn't fighting, haunted me. The next morning, I called her. She didn't answer. I texted, "We need to talk before your event." No reply. By mid-afternoon, I decided to go to her apartment. She answered the door looking mildly annoyed, as though I'd interrupted a perfectly pleasant day. She was in leggings again, sipping a smoothie, scrolling through her phone. "Mom, I told you I'm busy this week," she said, leaning on the doorframe. "I'm not here to waste your time, Erin," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I'm here because I'm giving you one last chance. Cancel the benefit." She blinked, then laughed. Actually, laughed. "You're unbelievable. Do you have any idea how much work I've put into this?" "I know exactly how much work you've put into lying to hundreds of people," I said. "And if you go through with it, you're not just lying, you're stealing. In person. From people who trust you." Her expression darkened. "You don't get it. These people want to help me. They feel good about it. Who are you to take that away from them?" "Who am I?" I stepped forward, forcing her to meet my eyes. "I'm your mother, the one who raised you to tell the truth, to work hard, to respect people. And right now, I barely recognize you." Her jaw tightened. "You think you're so righteous? You think your perfect little life gives you the right to judge me? You don't know what it's like to struggle." That last word hit a nerve. I'd struggled plenty, she just hadn't noticed, or maybe she didn't care. This isn't struggle, Aaron, I said quietly. This is manipulation. And when the truth comes out, and it will, you'll lose more than you can imagine. She crossed her arms, that smug half-smile back in place. You wouldn't dare expose me. It would ruin you too. Imagine what people would think hearing that you turned on your own daughter. I felt my stomach twist. She was right about one thing: if I exposed her, the fallout wouldn't be hers alone. My reputation, my friendships, my standing in this community, all of it would take a hit. But I couldn't let that stop me. Cancel it, I said one last time. Her response was to step back and close the door in my face. The following days passed like a slow-motion train wreck. Flyers for the benefit began popping up around town on cafe bulletin boards, taped to shop windows, tucked into church newsletters. Her smiling face stared back at me everywhere I went. The words, "fighting for her life, help Erin win the battle," seemed to burn into my eyes. I avoided public gatherings, not wanting to be asked about it. But that didn't stop people from calling. A former coworker rang me one evening just to gush about how inspiring Erin was. An old friend offered to bake pies for the silent auction. I thanked them, my throat tight, and hung up. 2 nights before the benefit, I saw something on social media that made my heart jolt. Erin had posted a video, shaky, tear-filled, full of trembling sighs. "Hi everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for your overwhelming love. I've had some people doubt me, people I thought I could trust, and it's been really hard. But knowing I have all of you in my corner, it means everything." The comment section erupted with sympathy and outrage on her behalf. People accused the doubters of being jealous, bitter, cruel. Some even hinted that if they found out who was doubting her, they'd make sure she paid for it. It didn't take much imagination to know exactly who she was talking about. My phone buzzed with a text from Nancy, the friend I'd run into weeks earlier. "Maggie, is this about you?" I didn't reply. I sat in my dim living room, phone in hand, staring at Erin's tearful face frozen on the screen. She wasn't just lying to the public now, she was preparing them to turn against me. The night of the benefit arrived. I didn't plan to attend, but I also couldn't stay home. My nerves had been coiled too tightly for too long. I drove to the cafe and parked across the street, the glow of string lights spilling onto the sidewalk. Through the big front windows, I could see the crowd, neighbors, friends, even people from out of town. A small band played in the corner. And there she was, at the center of it all, in a flowing dress and that same knit cap. She looked radiant, her smile, bright cheeks flushed. She worked the room like a politician, hugging donors, posing for selfies, thanking everyone personally. At one point, she stood at the microphone and told a heartfelt story about getting the diagnosis and facing her mortality. People wiped their eyes. The donation jar overflowed with bills. I sat in my car, nails digging into my palms, knowing that with every handshake and every dollar, she was sinking deeper into a hole she'd never climb out of. When the event ended, she stepped outside, her arms full of flowers and gift bags. She laughed with friends, the sound carrying across the street. That was when I knew she wasn't going to stop. Not until someone stopped her. The next morning, I called a meeting with my sister Elaine and my cousin Lillian, both of whom had donated generously. I spread out my evidence on Elaine's dining room table, the photos, the mismatched dates, the witness accounts. At first, they resisted. Elaine frowned, shaking her head. "Maggie, are you sure she's your daughter?" "Exactly," I said. "And that's why I can't watch her do this." Lillian scanned the screenshots, her face paling. This is bad." "It's worse than bad," I said. "It's fraud. And if the police get involved before we intervene, she'll be in serious legal trouble." We agreed to confront her together, hoping that hearing it from multiple family members might finally make her back down. When we arrived at her apartment that evening, she opened the door with a wary look. "What's this, an intervention?" she said, half smirking. "We need to talk," I said, stepping inside. Elaine spoke first. "Erin, We've seen the evidence. We know you haven't been to any treatments. We know the photos aren't real. Aaron's face hardened instantly. Oh, I see. Mom's been poisoning you too. This isn't Mom's word against yours, Lillian said quietly. These are facts. And if we can see them, others will too. She crossed her arms, defiant. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? You think I can't spin this? Something in her tone, that sheer, unshakable arrogance, told me she'd already made her choice. I'm done asking, I said. If you don't shut this down, I'll have no choice but to take what I know to the authorities. Her lips curved into a cold smile. Then you'll be the mother who ruined her own daughter's life. Hope you can live with that. Her words followed me out the door like smoke clinging, choking. But as much as they stung, I knew there was no turning back. She thought I wouldn't dare. She was about to find out how wrong she was. It didn't take long for Erin to make her move. The very next day, she posted another video, this one shot in her bedroom. Lights dim, her voice soft and shaky. She looked into the camera with tear-filled eyes and said, I never thought I'd have to make a video like this. But there are people I should be able to trust who are trying to tear me down. They're spreading lies about me, saying I'm not really sick, saying the fundraiser is a scam. I can't believe I'm being attacked when I'm fighting for my life. But I guess some people would rather destroy others than face their own unhappiness. She didn't say my name. She didn't have to. Within hours, the comment section was a mob. How dare they stay strong, Erin? Anyone who'd say that is pure evil. Let us know who it is, we'll take care of them. Some even sent private messages to my account, cruel, threatening, accusing me of being jealous of my own daughter. One woman I'd known for years wrote, I never took you for the type to kick someone when they're down. Shame on you. By evening, it wasn't just strangers. The whispers in my own neighborhood grew sharper. At the grocery store, two women abruptly stopped talking when I walked past. At church that Sunday, Mrs. Crowley, who'd hugged me just last week, gave me a cold, tight smile and turned away. Erin was winning the narrative, and I was becoming the villain in my own town. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with my evidence spread out again, the screenshots, the photos, the timeline I'd built. But now, it wasn't just about proving she was lying. It was about reclaiming my name before she buried it under a pile of her fabricated sympathy. I called Elaine and Lillian. She's turning people against me, I said. If I stay quiet any longer, she'll make sure everyone believes her version. Elaine hesitated. Maggie, going public means everyone will know your own daughter lied like this. Are you ready for that? I'm not ready, I admitted. But I'm even less ready to be branded a monster for something I didn't do. We decided to bide our time for a few days, not because I wanted to give her more space, but because timing mattered. If we dropped the truth while she was still fresh off her benefit event, the backlash might not just hit her, it could backfire on me, making me look vindictive. But Erin didn't give me that breathing room. 2 days later, she went live again. This time, she sobbed openly, mascara running voice, breaking mid-sentence. And then she said the words that changed everything. The worst part is, it's my mom. She's the one saying these things. She's been trying to control me my whole life, and now she's using my illness as another way to hurt me. She's jealous that people love me and want to help. She told me I should exaggerate my situation to get more sympathy. I didn't want to, but I just wanted her to be proud of me. I froze. My own daughter had just accused me in front of hundreds of people of forcing her to fake cancer. The comments exploded instantly. What? Your own mother did this to you? Unbelievable. She should be ashamed. It wasn't just the online crowd. Now my phone lit up with calls from people I knew, some demanding explanations, some too polite to say it outright, but clearly wondering if it could be true. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too badly. That night, I sat in the dark, phone on the table, staring at nothing. Every instinct in me wanted to scream to post my evidence right then and there to set the record straight. But the teacher in me, the part of me that had learned patience and strategy over decades, knew better. If I acted in anger, I'd give her exactly what she wanted, a messy, emotional fight she could spin into further proof of my abuse. I had to be smarter. The next morning, I contacted two people outside our family-neutral parties I trusted. One was Nancy, the friend who'd first mentioned Aaron's cancer post to me. The other was Margaret Long, a retired nurse from church. I showed them everything, the photos, the dates, the witness accounts. They sat in silence as they went through it all. Nancy's face tightened more with each page. Margaret finally set down the last photo and said, "Maggie, this is damning." "That's why I need help," I said. "If I release this myself, it's my word against hers. But if other people, respected people, confirm what they've seen, the truth will hold." Nancy nodded slowly. "I'll back you. But you need to brace yourself. This won't be pretty." Erin must have sensed something shifting because she doubled down. The next week, she posted fewer staged treatment updates and more emotional appeals about toxic family and cutting out the people who don't believe in you. Each one was laced with indirect jabs at me, and the money kept coming. But the longer she went without a hospital photo, the more small cracks appeared in her story. Someone commented asking why she still had her eyebrows after 4 months of chemo. Another asked why she hadn't shared a single update about her specific treatment plan. Her responses were curt, even defensive, a tone that didn't match her usual brave fighter persona. It was the first time I saw a glimmer of vulnerability in her public mask. The breaking point came when I overheard a conversation at the post office. Two women strangers to me were talking about Erin. "I heard her mother's been saying she's faking," one whispered. "Yeah, but get this," the other replied. "Someone told me Erin's never even been to the hospital here. Not once." I didn't interrupt. I didn't even look at them. But my heart pounded. Word was spreading, and not because of me. Maybe I thought I wouldn't have to drop the truth like a hammer. Maybe it could come out like a slow leak, impossible for her to plug. Still, I kept my folder of evidence close. Because if she made one more move against me, I was ready to bring the whole house down. It happened on a Thursday afternoon, the kind of ordinary day when you least expect something to break open. I was folding laundry in the living room when my phone buzzed with a notification, a live video from Erin. I almost ignored it. Her broadcasts had become predictable, the trembling voice, the knit cap, the strategically framed shots. But something in the thumbnail caught my attention. The background wasn't her bedroom or living room. It was a bright, airy hotel room. Curiosity got the better of me. I tapped in. She was sitting on the edge of a neatly made bed, the kind you only see in hotels, crisp white sheets, decorative pillows. She said she was recovering from a brutal treatment in a hospital out of state. But my eyes scanned the room and my stomach clenched. I knew that hotel. It was less than an hour away in the city, popular for weekend getaways. I'd stayed there once with my sister when we attended a teachers' conference. The artwork on the wall, the patterned curtains, even the distinctive lamp, all unmistakable. And then, she made her mistake. She reached for a bottle of water on the nightstand, and as she did, the camera caught a sliver of the countertop. And the edge of a receipt. I froze the video, took a screenshot, and zoomed in. The receipt clearly showed the hotel's name along with the date. She'd checked in the day before. Not only was she not in a hospital, she wasn't even out of state. I sat there for a moment, pulse thudding in my ears. This was it. The piece that could cut through every tearful story and fake photograph. It was proof plain and irrefutable. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk organizing my evidence again, but this time the hotel screenshot went right at the top. I added captions, dates, and concise explanations, making sure it told a story even without me narrating it. But I didn't just prepare it for social media. I sent copies to Nancy and Margaret Long, the retired nurse. I asked them to hold on to it in case anything happened to my files. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Nancy asked over the phone. I'm past wanting, I said. I need to. Before I could act, Erin unknowingly gave me an opening. 2 days later, she made another live video, this time from home, claiming she was weaker than ever after her recent treatment trip. Her face looked a little paler, but her energy didn't match her words. I decided to test her. I left a public comment. Nothing outright confrontational, just a question. Which hospital did you go to out of state? I have a friend there and wanted to let her know about your amazing fight. She read it mid-video, her smile flickering for just a moment. It's private. I'd rather not share that kind of detail, she said quickly, moving on to the next comment. But the seed was planted. Other viewers began asking similar questions, wondering why she was so secretive if she'd promised transparency in her journey. By the end of the day, she deleted the live video entirely. The following week, the community whispers grew louder. The benefit money had never been accounted for publicly. People were starting to notice her outings again. Dinners with friends, shopping trips, wine tastings. A few even messaged me privately saying they were beginning to have doubts. One evening, Elaine called me in a hushed voice. I think it's time, she said. If you wait any longer, she might twist this again. You've got the proof. Use it. I took a deep breath. Tomorrow, I said. Tomorrow, we end this. I woke early the next morning, my nerves electric. I brewed coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and typed a short, calm statement. No insults, no speculation, just facts. I attached the hotel screenshot, the stock photo evidence, the timeline of her supposed treatments versus her actual activities. When I hit post, my hands shook. I didn't tag her. I didn't even use her name. But everyone knew. Within minutes, the post exploded. Comments poured in, some shocked, some angry, a few defensive of her still. People began sharing the post, adding their own stories about suspicious moments or things that hadn't made sense. And then, silence from Erin. No live video, no emotional post, nothing. That silence was more telling than any denial could have been. But the peace didn't last long. That evening, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find her standing there, eyes blazing. You just couldn't keep your mouth shut, could you? She spat. I stepped aside, letting her in. Erin, you brought this on yourself? I didn't humiliate you. You did that by lying. You think you've won. All you've done is turn everyone against me, she said, pacing the living room. They were going to find out eventually, I said quietly. At least now you have a chance to make it right. Refund the money. Apologize. She stopped pacing, turning to me with a look that was almost pity. You really think an apology fixes this? I'll never forgive you for this, Mom. Never. And then she walked out, slamming the door behind her. I stood there for a long time, the silence in the house heavy and final. I had ended her scheme, but I knew I'd also ended something else. The fragile thread connecting us as mother and daughter had finally snapped. By the next morning, my phone was a war zone. Messages, emails, voicemails, some supportive, some furious. Nancy's voice was the first I heard when I pressed play on my voicemail. Maggie, I just want you to know you did the right thing. People need to see the truth. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty. The next was from Lillian, my cousin. It's spreading fast. A lot of people are shocked. Some are angry at her, some are still clinging to the stories she told. But they'll come around. Not all of them were kind. One anonymous voice message hissed, "You're jealous of your own daughter's bravery. You're sick." Another called me a cold, vindictive woman who enjoyed tearing her child apart. I deleted them one by one, but their venom stayed with me. By noon, the story had reached the local Facebook community page. Someone, not me, had reposted my evidence there with the caption, "If you donated, you might want to see this." The comment thread grew by the minute. Some were stunned. "I can't believe this. I donated $200. She looked so convincing. This is heartbreaking. Others were furious, "I want my money back." Scamming people over cancer. Lowest of the low. And then there were the defenders. None of you know the full story. This feels like a witch hunt. It was exactly what I'd feared. The truth was out, but it came with a storm of division. That afternoon, Elaine came over with coffee and pastries. We sat in my living room, the curtains drawn. "You look like you haven't slept," she said. "I haven't," I admitted. "It's one thing to know the truth yourself. It's another to throw it into the world and watch it shred everything." She set her cup down. "You didn't shred anything, Maggie." "She did. All you did was stop her from taking more people down with her." Her words should have been comforting, but my stomach still felt like it was full of broken glass. By evening, Erin finally broke her silence. She didn't call me. She didn't text. Instead, she posted a long Facebook message. "I know some of you have seen things online accusing me of lying about my cancer. I can't believe my own mother would go to such lengths to ruin me. Yes, I stayed in a hotel because I was taking a short break to process everything. Yes, I've been seen out because I refuse to let my illness steal every joy from me. But to twist those moments into proof of a scam, that's evil. And I'm heartbroken." The comments flooded in a mix of die-hard supporters rallying to her defense and former believers demanding answers. But the tide was turning. More and more people asked about the missing hospital records, the stock photos, the inconsistent timelines. And Erin had no answers. The next few days were brutal. The cafe that had hosted her benefit posted a statement saying they had no knowledge of fraudulent activity, but were cooperating with anyone seeking refunds. A handful of donors went public about requesting their money back. I overheard someone at the farmer's market say, "I used to think she was the sweetest girl. Now I don't know what to think." It was the slow unraveling of a carefully spun web, each thread snapping under the weight of its own lies. But the personal cost hit harder than I expected. The silence between Erin and me was total. No calls, no texts, no drive-by visits. Her absence was loud in my house, in the empty chair at Sunday dinners, in the missing name, on birthday invitations from family. I tried not to let the guilt swallow me, but late at night, lying awake, I'd replay everything in my head: the bakery encounter, the knit cap slipping to reveal her hair, the hotel receipt. Every piece of proof felt like a nail in the coffin of our relationship, and yet, I couldn't wish I'd stayed silent. One afternoon, I got a message from a woman I didn't know. My sister fell for a similar scam years ago. No one in the family had the courage to say anything, and she kept going until the police got involved. "You may have saved your daughter from a prison sentence. It may not feel like it now, but you did the right thing." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I read it again. Maybe this was what right looked like. Messy, painful, without applause. Maybe protecting her meant letting her hate me. I thought that was the end of it. But I didn't yet know Erin's worst move was still to come, and it would take the very last of my strength to answer it. It had been nearly 2 weeks since my post, and while the chaos hadn't fully settled, the story was losing its heat online. People were moving on, some still whispering about Erin's deceit, others pretending the whole thing had never happened. That's when she struck. I was sipping tea on a quiet Tuesday morning when my phone lit up with a new notification: "Erin Hollis is live now." Against my better judgment, I clicked in. She sat in her bedroom, hair down for the first time in months, her face bare of makeup. Her expression was a calculated mix of vulnerability and simmering anger. "I've stayed silent long enough," she began, her voice low. "My mother has been parading her so-called evidence around town, trying to ruin me. She wants everyone to believe I made all this up for money. But what she's not telling you is that she's been controlling my life for years. She didn't just know about the fundraiser, she told me to do it. She said it would be smart to get help with bills and that no one would question it if I said it was for cancer." My stomach dropped. It was the same tactic she'd tried before, only sharper now, not just painting me as cold and controlling, but as the mastermind behind the lie. The comment section ignited instantly. If this is true, your mom's a monster. This is so sick. I believe you, Erin. She's just trying to cover her tracks now that people are suspicious. And then she pulled out her trump card, a printout of text messages. From a distance, they looked damning my name at the top, her telling me about money problems, me replying. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do. I knew exactly where they'd come from, a months-old conversation we'd had when she was talking about borrowing money from a friend to cover rent. My words were about taking on extra shifts or selling things she didn't need. She'd cut the rest, reframing it as a smoking gun. I didn't comment. I didn't call her. I didn't defend myself in her chat. Instead, I opened my laptop and went straight to the original conversation in my phone backups. I took screenshots of the full exchange, complete with timestamps showing my advice was about legal, honest work. Then I sent them to Nancy and Margaret Long with a single line: if she's going to play this game, I'm ready to end it. By evening, the edited screenshots from Erin's video were already being shared on local Facebook groups, people debating whether they were proof or a setup. That's when Nancy stepped in. Without asking me first, she posted the full conversation in one of the biggest community groups, along with a pointed caption: if you're going to accuse someone publicly, at least don't forge evidence. Here's the truth. It was like lighting a fuse. The shift was immediate. Comments went from blind support to suspicion in a matter of hours. People who had defended her 2 days ago were now asking why she would crop and alter messages if she had nothing to hide. The next morning, Erin posted a brief, brittle statement: I'm done explaining myself to people who've already made up their minds. It was a retreat, and everyone knew it. But victory didn't feel like I thought it would. Yes, the balance of public opinion had swung back toward me. Yes, more donors were requesting refunds. Yes, her credibility had taken a fatal blow. But I couldn't shake the image of her sitting alone in that bedroom, scrambling to claw back control, too proud to admit what she'd done. She'd burned every bridge between us, and in doing so, she'd also cut herself off from anyone who might have helped her rebuild. The final unraveling came a few days later, when the cafe owner, the same one who had hosted her benefit, posted a public apology to the community, confirming that after reviewing the evidence, they believed a serious misrepresentation had taken place. They pledged to personally refund anyone who couldn't get their money back from Erin. It was the closest thing to an official condemnation she'd faced so far. And it sealed her fate. From that point on, no one called her brave anymore. No one posted hearts under her photos. The sympathy well had dried up completely. And yet, in the quiet of my home, I felt no joy. I'd told myself that when the truth won, I'd finally be able to breathe again. But the truth hadn't restored anything. It had only left a hollow space where my daughter's voice used to be. 3 days after the cafe's public apology, a letter arrived in my mailbox. No return address, just my name typed neatly in the middle. I slid it open at the kitchen counter, thinking it might be another anonymous opinion about the family scandal. It wasn't. It was from an attorney. The letter was short and sharp, accusing me of defaming Erin, damaging her reputation, and causing emotional distress. It warned that if I didn't remove all my public posts and issue a formal apology within 7 days, Erin would pursue legal action. I read it twice before setting it down. My first thought was almost absurd. She can't even face me directly anymore. My second was less forgiving. She was still playing offense even with the truth out in the open. I called Nancy immediately. She came over within the hour. The letters spread between us like a bad hand of cards. She's bluffing, Nancy said. If this went to court, she'd have to prove you lied. And you've got proof you didn't. I knew she was right, but the thought of a legal battle with my own daughter churned my stomach. It wasn't just the money or time it would cost. It was the idea of sitting in a courtroom across from the child I'd raised, each of us flanked by lawyers, our history dissected like a carcass. That night, I pulled out my folder again, the screenshots, the hotel receipt, the stock photo, the unedited messages. Every piece of evidence was still there, each one a stone in the foundation I'd built to protect myself. I could fight her. I could fight and win. But winning in court wasn't the same as winning in life. And yet, if I backed down, I'd give her a small victory she didn't deserve. The next morning, I called the attorney listed in the letter. My voice was calm, even measured. You can tell your client that I won't be removing any posts or issuing any apology. Every statement I've made is backed by documented evidence, which I'm happy to present in court if she'd like to proceed. There was a pause on the other end before the attorney said, "I see. I'll relay the message." I hung up knowing that even if it never came to trial, Aaron would take my refusal as a declaration of war. Over the next week, the letter became public knowledge. Aaron made sure of it. She posted vague comments about pursuing justice and standing up to bullies trying to reframe herself as the victim of a smear campaign. But without fresh sympathy, her posts barely got a handful of likes. I noticed something else too. The people who had once been her most vocal defenders had gone quiet. Some unfollowed her altogether. One afternoon at the grocery store, a woman I barely knew stopped me in the baking aisle. I believed her at first, she admitted. But after everything came out, well, I guess I needed to see the whole picture. "I'm sorry for what you've gone through." Her words were a small balm on a wound that still felt raw. Meanwhile, the money Aaron had raised remained a sore point in the community. Several donors complained that she hadn't refunded them despite her promises. A rumor spread that she'd used the funds to pay off credit card debt and take trips. I didn't know if it was true, but I knew it was plausible. There was talk of involving the police. One man who'd given $1,000 hinted he might file a report. I stayed out of it, careful not to be seen as fueling any investigation. If the law caught up to her, it wouldn't be because I'd pushed it. Late one evening, as I was locking up the house, I saw headlights slow outside my driveway. A familiar car. Aaron's. She didn't get out. She just sat there for a moment, the glow of her phone lighting her face before pulling away into the dark. I stood there on the porch long after she was gone, wondering if she'd been thinking about coming in. Wondering if she'd been tempted to knock to talk. Wondering if we'd ever have that conversation, or if we were both too far gone. By the end of the week, no more letters came. No court summons. The legal threat fizzled out quietly, and I knew she'd decided not to push it either, because she couldn't afford to, or because she knew she'd lose. It should have felt like a win. But as I sat alone at my kitchen table that Friday night, the house silent, I realized that every victory in this battle left me lonelier than before. She was still my daughter. And now, she was a stranger. It started with a single post. A man named Peter Carlson, someone I vaguely remembered from the cafe benefit, wrote on the local community page, "I donated $1,000 to Aaron's cancer fundraiser." She promised updates and transparency. "After recent revelations, I've requested a refund." She hasn't responded. "I'm giving her 7 days before I file a police report." That was it, short, direct, and devastating. Within hours, others chimed in. "Same here. I gave $300, no refund. She told me she'd pay me back as soon as she got through this rough patch." That was a month ago. "I'm in for $50 and I'm not letting it go." That was grocery money for my family. The comments snowballed. By nightfall, the thread had over 200 responses, most from people who had donated, all of them angry. The next day, the cafe owner, who had already refunded several donors out of his own pocket, made another post. "If you donated at the benefit, please contact us. We are compiling a list of affected individuals in case legal action becomes necessary." That word "legal" sent a ripple through the community. Suddenly, Aaron's name wasn't just whispered at the farmer's market or over backyard fences. It was being discussed in serious, measured tones by people who saw themselves not as gossips, but as victims of fraud. I didn't reach out to Peter or the cafe owner. I didn't comment on any of the posts. I stayed silent even though I felt the air around me buzzing with the inevitability of what was coming. And Aaron stayed silent too. For days, she posted nothing. No live videos, no tearful captions, no inspirational quotes. Her social media presence, once a steady stream of curated tragedy, dried up overnight. But silence has a way of amplifying suspicion. People began speculating about where she was, whether she'd left town, whether she was already facing police questioning. Then one evening, Elaine called. "They've started unfollowing her," she said. "All those people who swore she was innocent, they're just disappearing." I checked for myself. It was true. Her friends list had visibly shrunk. Mutual acquaintances who'd once defended her had deleted old supportive comments, their public loyalty vanishing like it had never existed. A few even reached out to me, awkward, hesitant messages. "I'm sorry for believing her. I didn't realize how deep it went. You didn't deserve what she said about you." I didn't reply to most of them. Forgiveness felt too big to give away in bulk. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning. A new post appeared on the community page, this time from a woman named Shelley, who claimed to have worked with Aaron at a retail store years ago. I'm not surprised by what's happening now. She used to lie to customers all the time to make sales, and when she got caught, she'd cry until the manager let her off. She's been doing this for years, just on a smaller scale. The comments that followed were relentless. Other former co-workers chimed in with their own stories. Patterns emerged: manipulation, selective charm, twisting facts to get her way. Whatever sympathy she might have had left evaporated in that thread. By the end of the week, Erin's social circle had collapsed almost entirely. The people still standing by her were the kind who defended anything out of stubbornness, not loyalty. And that's when the news came quietly in the form of a message from Peter Carlson. "Just thought you should know, a group of us have filed a formal complaint with the police. We gave them all the screenshots and posts we had. If she doesn't start refunding people soon, this is going to court." I read it twice, feeling both relief and a strange heaviness. This was no longer my fight. The community had taken ownership of the truth, and whatever happened next was in the hands of the law. That night, I stood in my kitchen, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I'd thought this moment would feel like vindication, the end of a battle I'd been fighting alone for too long. But instead, it felt like standing on a cliff edge looking down at the wreckage. Yes, the truth had won. But my daughter had lost not just her reputation, not just her friends, but the part of herself that might have chosen differently. And I'd lost her too. The first sign that things had shifted from whispers to real consequences came one Thursday morning when a patrol car idled in front of my house. Two officers stepped out not to question me, but to ask if I had time to answer a few background questions. They made it clear I wasn't in trouble. They just wanted to confirm some details that had been brought to them by multiple complainants in the community. We sat at my kitchen table, coffee cups between us. They asked when I first suspected Erin's illness claim was false, how I'd come by the screenshots and photos, and whether I'd seen any direct evidence of her receiving or spending donated funds. I answered everything honestly, sliding my neatly organized folder toward them. "Everything's here," I said, my voice steady. "Dates, time, sources. You'll see that the hospital trips she described online never happened." One of the officers flipped through the pages, nodding. "You've been thorough." I didn't tell them that being thorough was the only thing keeping me from breaking apart. 2 days later, Erin broke her social media silence with a post that could only be described as a last-ditch gamble. It was a selfie, pale face, damp cheeks, eyes red-rimmed, with a caption that read, "I never thought I'd see the day when my own family would work with strangers to destroy me. I admit I've made mistakes, but I am not a criminal. I never forced anyone to give me money, and I'm being targeted because people can't stand to see me survive something they couldn't handle themselves." The comments were mixed. Some still clung to her story. Others demanded specifics: which hospital, which doctor, where the funds went. She dodged every direct question. The likes trickled in slowly, nothing like the floods of support she'd once commanded. That evening, Elaine called. "She's cracking," she said. "You can see it in her writing. She's trying to guilt people into forgetting the facts." "I wish she'd just tell the truth," I murmured. "Even now it would matter. Not for the people she scammed for herself." The following Monday, I got another visit from the police. This time, they were more pointed. "We're building a timeline," one officer explained. "If this case moves forward, your testimony and your evidence could be central. Are you willing to cooperate fully if it goes to court?" I hesitated. Not because I didn't want the truth out, but because agreeing meant committing to months of hearing statements and maybe even facing Aaron across a courtroom. Finally, I said, "If that's what it takes for people to get justice, yes, I'll cooperate." The words felt heavy in my mouth, like I'd just locked myself into a decision I couldn't undo. Meanwhile, Aaron's life was shrinking in plain sight. The benefit money from what people whispered was nearly gone. She'd quietly moved out of her apartment. Some said she'd been evicted and was staying with a distant acquaintance. Her posts grew infrequent and vague, no longer about battling cancer, but about moving on from toxic people and starting fresh. But she never named me again. One night, lying in bed, I wondered if she'd ever understand that I hadn't done any of this out of spite. That in my own clumsy, desperate way, I'd been trying to save her from the inevitable. But deep down, I knew the truth. Some people don't see a rescue until it's far too late. And my daughter might never see it at all. It was early evening when I heard the knock. Not the light, hesitant tap of a neighbor, but a steady, deliberate knock 3 times. When I opened the door, Erin stood there. She looked different. Not the curated, sick, but beautiful version she'd shown the internet, and not the smug, defiant woman who'd stared me down in my living room weeks ago. She looked smaller. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes mismatched. The sharpness in her eyes was dulled, but not gone. "Can I come in?" she asked. I stepped aside without a word. She sat at the kitchen table while I made tea, the silence between us thick. Finally, she said, "The police came to see me." I didn't answer. "They asked about the money, about my posts, about everything." She kept her gaze fixed on the tabletop. "I told them it was a misunderstanding, that I panicked about bills and made bad choices." "That's a start," I said quietly. Her head snapped up. "A start. You've ruined me, Mom. Do you get that? No job, no friends. Everyone thinks I'm some kind of monster." I set the tea down in front of her, my hands steady even though my heart was pounding. "You did that to yourself, Erin. I didn't make you lie. I didn't make you take their money. All I did was tell the truth." She laughed, a hollow sound. "You keep saying that like it's noble. But all I see is you choosing strangers over your own daughter." "I chose what was right," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "And you think they care? These people you protected, they'll forget you tomorrow. I'm the one who has to live with this." For a moment, I almost said I was sorry. But the words caught in my throat because I wasn't. Instead, I said, "If you want to live with this, Erin, you have to own it. Make it right. Refund what you can. Apologize." She stood abruptly, the chair legs scraping the floor. "You don't get it. I'm not crawling to them. And I'm sure as hell not giving them the satisfaction." At the door, she paused. "If this goes to court, I'll tell them you were in on it from the start." I met her gaze. "Then I guess we'll both be telling our stories under oath." She stared at me for a long moment, her mouth tightening. Then she left. That night, I sat in the darkened kitchen long after she was gone, the tea on the table gone cold. I'd thought I'd prepared myself for the idea that she might never forgive me. But hearing her speak those words that she'd drag me down with her made it real in a way I hadn't felt before. I wasn't just the mother who'd exposed her. In her mind, I was now the enemy. The next week, the police followed up again, this time with more pointed questions about the fundraiser's total and where the money had gone. They didn't tell me everything, but I could tell from their tone that they were closing in on a decision. In town, the tension was palpable. Some people avoided me entirely while others offered quick, supportive nods when no one else was watching. Nancy told me quietly over coffee, "If they charge her, you have to let it play out. No interference. You've done your part." But in my heart, I knew there would be nothing letting it play out about watching my daughter's life be laid bare in a courtroom. That night, I dreamed about her as a child, tangled hair-skinned knees running up the front walk with a fistful of dandelions. I woke up with the bitter taste of memory in my mouth, wondering how the girl with flowers in her hands had grown into the woman with threats on her lips. The call came on a gray Thursday morning. I recognized the number immediately, the local police department. "Mrs. Hollis," the officer said, "I wanted to inform you that the district attorney is reviewing the evidence in the case against your daughter. Several donors have given sworn statements, and we have documentation of the fundraiser's transactions. If charges are filed, you may be called to testify." Even though I'd been expecting this, my chest tightened. "Do you know when a decision will be made?" "Likely within the next 2 weeks," he said. "We'll keep you updated." When I hung up, the house felt heavier. 2 weeks. 2 weeks until my daughter's life might change forever again. That afternoon, I went to the grocery store. In the produce aisle, a woman I barely knew stopped me. "I heard they might be charging Erin," she said in a hushed tone, glancing around as if the cabbages could overhear us. "I'm sorry, Maggie. This must be hard." I nodded, forcing a polite smile, but inside I wanted to tell her, "You have no idea how hard it is to choose between your child and the truth." That evening, Elaine came over. We sat at the table with mugs of tea, the steam curling between us. "You've done what you could," she said. "Now it's out of your hands." But it didn't feel out of my hands. If the case went to court, my testimony could be the difference between a conviction and a dismissal. And if I told the whole truth, everything I'd seen, everything I'd documented, there would be no softening the blow. I lay awake that night, turning it over in my mind. Was there a way to tell the truth without destroying her completely? Or was that just a story I told myself to feel better about what was coming? 3 days later, Erin showed up again. This time, she didn't knock. She walked straight in the way she used to when she'd come over for Sunday lunch. Her eyes were red, and she looked like she hadn't slept. "They're going to charge me," she said flatly. "And I know you're the one who gave them most of what they have." I didn't deny it. I told them the truth. She laughed bitterly. "You told them your truth. You didn't tell them I was desperate. You didn't tell them I was drowning." "Desperation isn't an excuse for fraud, Erin." Her voice cracked. "It's an excuse for survival." I wanted to reach for her, to bridge the space between us. But she straightened, wiping her face with the back of her hand. "If you testify, Mom, we're done. Forever." And then she left, the door clicking shut behind her. The following week felt like walking a tightrope in a storm. Every ring of the phone made my heart jump. Every time I passed her old bedroom, I caught myself remembering the way she used to leave little notes on my pillow when she was younger. When the call finally came, the officer's voice was formal. "The DA has decided to proceed with charges. We'll be in touch regarding the court date and your testimony." I thanked him, hung up, and sat in the quiet house, my tea growing cold on the table. That night, I stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window into the darkness. Somewhere out there, my daughter was facing the reality of her choices. And somewhere inside me, a part of me still wished I could shield her from it even after everything. But the truth was, like the cold night air pressing against the glass, it was here, it was unrelenting, and it wasn't going away. The courthouse smelled faintly of old paper and cold coffee. I sat on a hard wooden bench outside the courtroom, my folder of evidence clutched in my lap. My name had been called for witness preparation, and soon I'd be under oath speaking words that would forever sever what little thread remained between Erin and me. She was already there when I arrived that morning, sitting with her attorney at the far end of the hall. I caught a glimpse of her profile, chin, high eyes forward, every muscle in her face set into the mask I knew so well. Not once did she look in my direction. When it was my turn to testify, the DA walked me through everything: the screenshots, the hotel receipt, the timeline. My voice stayed steady, but each question felt like pulling apart an old wound with bare hands. I could feel Erin's gaze on me the entire time, heavy and unblinking. Her lawyer tried to rattle me on cross-examination. "Mrs. Hollis, isn't it true that you and your daughter have had disagreements for years?" "Yes," I said evenly. "Like any family. And isn't it possible you're exaggerating her actions out of personal resentment?" "No," I said. "It's not possible. I have the truth right here." When I stepped down, Erin's expression didn't change, but her hands were gripping the edge of the defense table so tightly her knuckles had gone white. The proceedings lasted 3 days. Witnesses spoke, documents were reviewed, and by the end, the case wasn't a question of if she had lied, but why. The law doesn't care much for why. When the verdict came guilty on fraud and false representation, Erin didn't flinch. She just stood, nodded once, and sat back down. The judge ordered restitution to the donors and a year of probation with community service. It wasn't prison, but it was a sentence all the same. Afterward, I walked out into the crisp air, the courthouse doors closing behind me. For a moment, I thought I heard footsteps following, and then there she was. We stood facing each other on the courthouse steps, the noise of the street blurring into the background. "You got what you wanted," she said quietly. "No," I said. "I wanted my daughter back." Her jaw tightened. "That's not going to happen." I nodded. "I know." She looked like she might say more, but instead she turned and walked away, her figure growing smaller until it disappeared into the crowd. That night, I sat alone in my kitchen, the house silent except for the ticking of the clock. I thought about the little girl who used to run through this house, her laughter spilling down the hallway, and I thought about the woman who had stood before me today. Somewhere between those two people was a version of Erin who could have chosen differently. I'll never know why she didn't. But I do know this: the truth doesn't care about comfort, and love doesn't always look like protection. Sometimes it looks like letting someone fall, because catching them would mean holding up their lies. If anyone reading this has faced something similar, choosing between protecting someone you love and protecting what's right, you'll understand the weight of it. And if you've never faced it, I hope you never do, because there's no winning here. There's only surviving the choice you make. If you've stayed with me through this story, thank you. Share it if it reminded you of your own, and subscribe to Grace's Truth for more stories that don't shy away from the hardest decisions we have to make.